All right, we'll move on to Mr. Flora.
Hi, Alan Flora, City Manager, City of Clearlake.
Okay, Supervisor Crandell.
Eddie Crandell, District 3 Supervisor. Hello, everyone.
Okay, and if you are not speaking, if you can mute, I can hear some typing. I'm not sure where it's coming from. Pretty please. Those are all the names I recognize that would have been invited as members. I do see Mr. Arslanian, a restaurant owner from the city of Lakeport, if he wants to introduce himself.
Good afternoon. How you guys doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
I see Ms. Figueroa.
Good afternoon. Thank you for holding this meeting.
I could barely hear you, but thank you for being here. I believe that's Mr. Carmona, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and along with Carmona, we have Ms. Larson.
Yes.
Thank you for being here. I see Western, I believe Seifert is his last name, is also on here representing restaurants. Not as a member, but.
Yeah, hey gang, this is Weston from the Saw Shop.
Okay, thank you so much. We have a couple phone numbers. Are any of you meant to be members of the board or the committee?
Supervisor,
I'm honest.
If you're 4475, can you please speak? Thank you for muting.
Supervisor
Okay.
Carol Bear was appointed to sit on this team by the Middletown Area Merchant Association.
Okay,
I don't know if she's here though. I don't know if that number is her. It might be.
okay,
I'm the 994 number.
okay, perfect. Thank you, Carol. All right, let's go ahead and move on with the agenda. I believe we are going to set some seats. Is that the next item on the agenda?
I think it's Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, I am so sorry. Mr. Crandell, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes. All right, ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now let's move on to the next. Ms. Hutchinson, if you would like to just take over until we have the seats.
Yes, so the next agenda item, number 3 on the agenda, is to elect officers today so that you'll know how you're going to run this meeting and future meetings. And so probably you need to elect a chair and a vice chair. I don't know that you need to go further than that unless one of you just wants to be the secretary. What I was going to propose for that, for the ease in taking minutes, would be to record these meetings, which I'm doing now, and I can work with our IT staff to create a web page for this group, and we can put their recorded meetings on the web page for people to view. And of course, staff can take note of any action items you agree upon, but if we can, lessen the burden of taking minutes, that would be helpful. So with that in mind, my recommendation would be that you elect a chair and a vice chair for purposes of overseeing the meetings, and then let the recordings of the meetings serve as the record of the meetings.
And I'm okay. I'm okay with that, except I do want maybe a specific type of meeting minutes, and that's at the end. We have review of action items, and I think it's always good to hand out the action items to the group to make sure that we're all aware of what's expected of us, if anything, for the next meeting. Having to go through the entire recording just to get that information, I think, would be too much.
Okay, we can absolutely take note of that and post it. You bet.
Any nominations? Anybody volunteer to be the chair? I'll
Nominate Bruno to be the chair.
I'll volunteer.
Second.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have a motion maybe also at the same time for a vice chair? Anybody volunteer to be that?
I'll do it.
Thank you, Ms. Turner. So that was I moved to, or actually, Mr. White, would you like to add that to your motion?
Yes, I would. So I will amend my motion to add Maria Turner as the vice chair.
Second.
Okay. And then Ms. Hutchinson, can you poll the members, please? And at this moment in time, we will make the city managers be the members until further notice when appointed by their respective boards. Is that okay? Can't hear you.
So the city managers would be the appointee
I guess-
of the cities, is that, but you just made Maria the vice
Yeah.
chair, or you're in the process
I
though?
just saw my mistake as I said that too. So yeah, if you can just poll, it's pretty obvious who's from Clear Lake. There's only one person too. So
All right.
Mireya,
So-
you were the de facto member from your team.
Okay, so so then I'll say team member Bear, do you vote in favor of the motion to appoint Bruno Sabatier as chair and Maria Turner as vice chair?
Yes.
Melissa Fulton? I think Melissa is on the phone now, so she may not have audio. Rick White?
Yes.
Alan Flora?
Yes.
And then I'm going to go to Maria as the city rep because we're assuming that will happen. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, Maria Turner
Aye.
and Eddie Crandell,
Yes.
Bruno Sabatier.
Aye.
Okay, so that is 6 in favor. One
Melissa also
abstain.
stated yes too. She typed it in the chat.
Okay, all right. Then the motion passes unanimously. Congratulations.
Okay. Thank you so much. Let's move on to item 5, discussion and consideration of meeting schedule and record keeping. In my opinion, I think that we need to meet fairly regularly in the coming weeks as things are rolled out, especially with the new approval of the stimulus package from the federal government, kind of reviewing what does the PPP look like and get us prepared as much as possible ahead of time. And there's already the upcoming dates for when the first round of the small business stimulus from the state of California is going to open up, which is January 8th, if I remember correctly. No, sorry, December 30th finishes on January 8th. So I think that we should probably meet, I'm thinking, once a week until we say that it's no longer necessary to meet. I'd love to hear what other people say.
I think that's a good idea, and Mondays would work best for me.
Okay.
This time Monday seems good.
I agree.
Okay.
I'm in favor.
Sounds good.
Okay, so let's go ahead and continue meeting on Mondays at this time until we choose that it's no longer necessary for us to meet and discuss these things. Okay, so that's direction. Discussion and consideration of collaborative approach to secure all possible COVID-19 disaster relief funding available for Lake County businesses. Part A is the California Small Business COVID-19 Relief Grant Program. So just real quick, I don't know how many of you have been reviewing the webinars that have been happening pretty much daily, except for Christmas Day and maybe over the weekend. There's not much change in the information that they're providing. It's still very vague, but yet there's some specifics that we should definitely know about and discuss. So if you don't mind, I'll just summarize briefly some of the points that I've gotten from being on the webinars and trying to capture all the information. Anybody who's received any local, federal, or other state grant or program funds to help with the relief of COVID-19, are still eligible. Nothing stops them. They need to have a minimum of $1,000 in revenue in the course of the entire year. In the past years, I think they're looking at tax years 2018 and 2019, depending on which one you have available. You cannot access this if you have more than $2.5 million in revenue. And again, it opens up December 30th, closes on January 8th. One of the sticking points, and this was brought to my attention and it's been made pretty obvious in the reoccurring webinars, this was brought to my attention by Lake EDC Nicole Flora, is that the status of our county based on the safety guidelines by the state of California, whether we're orange, red, or purple, will definitely have an impact on not eligibility, but who gets the priority for the funds. So of course, we just recently, within the last month, went into purple. We shouldn't see that as a bad thing, but that will definitely make it a more difficult situation for our businesses to access some of these funds. They are going through Lendistry, who is the intermediary between the state and those who will be getting the grant. The grants are up to $25,000 if you make between $1 million to 2.5, and a minimum of $5,000 if you make less than $100,000 in revenue. And somewhere in the middle, I don't know the specific, it's not right in front of me, but I think there's a $15,000 grant as well if you're between $100,000 and $1 million, I believe is what it is. You have to be a business before June 1st, 2019. So even if you started a business in January of 2020 before COVID ever hit, you will not be eligible for that. I think those are the main points, and it is not a first come, first serve. It will be based on priority. If you don't get picked in round one, you will automatically get put into round two. So I believe there's $267.5 million or $234.5 million being put in round one, and the same amount being put in round two. If you don't put in on round one, obviously you don't get a chance for that, but you can still put in for round two. And I think that our push for any of our businesses would be to submit within round one, so that at least they have the chance within round one and then the chance again within round two. And so we can look at it like that. So that's the briefest of summaries that I think I could provide. I think that we need to, and this goes for the federal stimulus package as well as others, is look at a way to engage our businesses to understand what's available, what eligibilities are there, and how it is that we might be able to maybe do some sort of our own webinar, our own ability to help them navigate through the application process, which I think is probably going to be the most difficult part for any of our businesses. So opening it up for discussion, I don't think that we can change what it is at this moment in time, but we could always also look at writing some letters, which will be a later part of the item number 5, to see if maybe round 2 could look at things differently. But right now we're speaking specifically about what's available. So since no one's talking, I'll continue real quick. I know that
I have a question, Bruno.
First, let's go ahead and ask the board, the committee members, if there's any comments or questions, and then we'll go ahead and open it up to the public.
Perfect.
Yeah. And just to finish real quick, I know that Supervisor Brown did some outreach to businesses at the very beginning of COVID-19. I think this was back maybe in April. I'd like to have a discussion on how effective that was. Is that something similar that we'd like to do? Or do we want a different approach in how it is that we outreach to our businesses? And also, what is our level of outreach? Are we going through only what's within our lists? Are we how are we reaching out to every single business to make sure that they're aware of these things, rather than, as we all know, the usual suspects that always show up for the meetings and are very aware, and good for them for being in those places at the right place at the right time. But I'd like to make sure that we try to reach out to the most amount of businesses as possible.
So Bruno, there was a meeting like you're talking about in April, And it was publicized and conducted as like we would have like a special meeting or a town hall in the evening, and it was very productive. A lot of folks were there to answer questions. They also brought in people from the EDD. They brought in people from different banks and different agencies that could discuss the intricacies of Paycheck Protection Plan and fight idle and different grants as such. So it might be effective to do something like that still.
I would further that to say we should have it recorded and available on a YouTube with a link that's easily accessible so that business owners can access that at their convenience.
Okay. I agree with that. And I see that Melissa typed in here that the chamber put out the info on the $500 million to all of their members, I think she said. Yeah. Any other comment? So right now we're looking at possibly doing another one of those town halls with this specific information on the $500 million from the state of California. Yes, council member.
Outside of the cities that require business licenses for operations of all businesses, is there a resource list for all businesses in the county so that we can make sure that we're like the chamber's got their stuff covered? That's great. So, but we need to make sure that non-chamber members, all the other ones, are reached as well. So I know that the city, I would think my first idea would be to go through our business license roster. However, that doesn't help us with county businesses that are not operating in the cities. What's already been set up for that? Because I'm sure that it's not a new idea.
Yeah, I like that. First off, let's go with the cities. Mr. Ingram and Mr. Flora, do you have access to a list that can give us all the current active businesses?
Yeah, we do have that list. I mean, you know, I guess I have to step back a little bit. I'm not sure. I feel like we're kind of creating additional work for a committee where most of the stuff has already been covered. You know, we've spent the last, I don't know, 8 months or so trying to push resources out through the EDC as sort of the obvious central repository of this type of resources, and EDC has organized webinars and various things. So I'm kind of struggling to see why we need another committee to push that. I mean, the EDC has both cities' business license lists as well as the county fictitious business statement list, which is, you know, very large and cumbersome. But I don't know. I mean, I'm just, it's hard for me to see a role for a new committee or group in this situation where we already have several groups, and primarily the EDC, that has been, I believe, filling this role pretty successfully over the last 6 to 8 months.
And I don't disagree that the Lake EDC has done a great job. I wanted to be very specific about this, and I don't feel I have a level of control over Lake EDC to tell them exactly what I would like them to focus. So I thought creating the group, which was approved by the board and obviously is looking to be approved by both cities, could help with specifically helping out with the outreach. And I think we work hand in hand with Lake EDC rather than doing our own separate thing. That's my opinion on that.
So perhaps our next question is then, if we've already got a mechanism for outreach, how can we best come around and support that mechanism? Because I from what Alan's saying, if EDC, I vaguely remember them being identified earlier as kind of the central repository for information as well as outreach. So that sounds like we don't want to recreate the wheel. So is there something that EDC could express that we could help support them as a multi-jurisdictional committee?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, going back to Supervisor Sabatier's point about trying to make sure that there aren't businesses that are sort of left in the dust. I mean, there's, I don't know what the final number was, but somewhere around 75 businesses received CARES Act grants through the funding that the county board of supervisors set aside. So, you know, each of those businesses have already received information about the 500 million program. And, so that list is in solid shape, and we've all been kind of trying to push out information to other folks. I mean, my concern is the reality is just based on population, if you break the numbers down, I'm assuming that there's going to be maybe 20 businesses out of this first round in Lake County that are going to get funding. And so there's going to be a lot of competition for that. And, it's unfortunate that there isn't going to be more funding available, but I think there's going to be a lot of disappointed businesses out there that aren't going to get access to this funding because it's just not enough. But to me, the biggest thing a group can do is, you talked about, lobbying legislature. I don't know, how successful that always is, but I do believe that was one of the successes of the PSPS committee, putting a lot of pressure on the PUC and PG&E for some reform related to that type of thing. So there's certainly some focus there. And then, I don't want the business community to think that this group is picking winners or losers on the businesses. That's outside of our hands. The best thing we can do is make sure that every business out there who needs some resources at least knows where to go. And if they have questions, contact the EDC or SBA or other folks to help answer their questions and help them apply.
And I appreciate those comments, because I think that part of this group's power is definitely in our voice and numbers in jurisdictions, all being here on the same place and being able to lobby for more than just what we're seeing, and maybe lobbying specifically for rural communities like ourselves to have access to this, where we're going to see a large portion of the $500 million going to suburban or urban areas, most likely. And I agree that it is going to be highly competitive, and I do not want to duplicate work that's already being done. And if work is already being done, the question is more, how can we support that work and ensure that it's successful, more so than replicating it? Any other comments from board members?
Well, I think the big challenge is to make sure that the word is getting out to get everyone a fair shot at this. And it's incumbent on all of us that have the knowledge to spread it. So, if you're seeing something coming out through Facebook or whatever the medium is to do your part by sharing it. That's the best way to get the information out. So anything we can do along those lines as a committee to make, help EDC, share that information is going to be something that we should be looking at.
Right.
I don't know what our committee can do other than that.
Is there a plan already, either Rick or Alan, that the EDC has, other than what they've already done, which is sending out emails? Are there other plans to help support businesses who are looking to try and access these funds?
I'm not aware of a law. I think the EDC has provided a little bit of, and would provide some technical support as appropriate for folks wanting to, apply. I don't think we've seen the application and all that stuff yet. So
yeah,
making sure that people are reviewing what we expect the criteria to be and so forth. But, I know that at least the businesses that either applied, whether they received funding or not for the CARES Act stuff through the EDC, have established that relationship there. And so, I think there's a good resource, whether it's through Nicole or Andy or Jeff, even as well, to help, support some of that. But, we need to get the applications active so we can sort of look at that a little bit more.
And it doesn't sound like we have much time yet. The December 30th, between the 30th and the 8th.
Yeah.
And we still don't know all the details from the state. So we're kind of put into a interesting position right now.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Any other comments? So at this point, I think what we're looking at is supporting Lake EDC, trying to get the information out to as many of our businesses as possible, sharing all information we receive, and trying to get our businesses to be aware of this application process that will open up in 2 days, and then keep trying to support them best we can throughout all the way through January 8th. Is that what I'm hearing right now as a consensus?
Yeah, I think so.
I'd also really like us to focus. I like the idea about us lobbying.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Multi-jurisdictional. I think that we should keep that at the forefront. It
Yep.
sounds like we've got mechanisms already doing really good outreach, and Rick made a good point. We should really kind of not forget that part. The chamber sending them to all the business associations, so that's great. It's possible that we can forward notices through our Yahoo accounts or do something on like a side note. But I agree. I think I think one of our good strengths of this group would be a lobbying effort,
Right.
for both state and federal.
Okay, and that's item D on item number 5. So or C. So we'll definitely get to that and speak on what it is that we're looking to do. If there's no other member comments, I'll open it up to the public. Anyone from the public have any comments or questions?
Yes, I do.
Go for it.
Hello. I know we were talking about the grant situation, but my question is do you have any information on when the applications will be available for PPP loans?
At this moment, that was just approved over the weekend, and we do not have any greater details other than the previous PPP, and no dates, I believe, at this moment in time that I'm aware of, and we'll discuss that in the next item to see if anyone else has any further information on that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Anyone
So,
else from the public?
Supervisor, to clarify, we're moving away from the discussion around hosting a town hall.
At this moment, it would seem that I'm not willing to let that one go entirely because there might be some other things that we need to have the town hall for. But it seems to me that I think that supporting what Lake EDC is doing and making sure to get the message out is the best way to move forward. And we'll see if the rest of the board or the committee shakes their head yes or no. I know that we did speak of doing that. I'm not sure that we can necessarily get that done and organized in order to assist for a January 8th deadline. But again, I don't want to duplicate the work that the EDC is doing, as that would just seem redundant.
I think that type of meeting may be appropriate when we find out what all's in the federal stimulus package and how that's going to roll out. And maybe we circle back to that one then, would be my thought. But
appreciate that. Okay, one last call for public comment. Okay, let's bring it back to the board. Not sure if Maria or Eddie had something to say about the public meeting. Do you guys want to wait a little bit, or do you want to take action now on what's happening with the state?
Yeah.
I think before we put staff into, the frenzied action that it takes to set one of those up and get it all out, I like Alan's suggestion. Let's have actual data to supply to them that'll be useful for the businesses before we schedule that.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So let's go ahead and move on to federal stimulus package. I forget the exact amount. I think it was 250 billion. I forget what the exact amount was going out for PPP loans. I know that we've experienced PPP loans, which are also forgivable loans if used for specific reasons. And unfortunately, I want to say that Lake County was not a huge recipient of PPP loans in the previous stimulus package. I'm hopeful that we can change that, but I'm not sure again of the details. If anybody has any further details, this is all kind of brand new at this moment in time. But I am in agreement that hopefully we can gather enough information that not only can we offer some good concrete info on the PPP loans coming out, but also for round 2, if anything has been learned or changed for the state relief fund, that we can provide that same information as well.
I don't know if it's changed, like the new stimulus package will change with the Paycheck Protection Program, but I do know that, I know Robinson had been a recipient of that. I know that they've went through the funding, of course, because it's the end of the year. A lot of it needs to be used for paying your employees if they're off, if you have to close down. If most of the funds can go towards operations and things of that nature, that's where you will see the stimulus pack or the PPP loan being forgiven. But if it's not used in that fashion, it'll be a low interest loan or something like that, 0% or something.
Anyone else? So are we in agreement? Yes.
I received a notice from Congressman Mike Thompson that he is hosting a webinar on January 5th at 9 a.m. to explain what the federal stimulus package means. So I don't know if other people got that. I didn't get it in my business email. I got it in my personal email. We can push that link out. He indicated there's a 500 person capacity in that.
I did not receive that either.
I'll send it to everybody on this call. Obviously, the board will be meeting at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, but perhaps others can listen to it.
Okay.
This is so I just found it again. It is a webinar for small businesses, and it's regarding the 300 million in the latest coronavirus relief package.
I take it that's billion or million?
Excuse me, billion. Did I say
Okay.
million? Sorry, these big numbers.
Okay. Yes, very useful. So please share that with everyone.
I will.
I'm going to open up to the public if anybody has any questions. At this moment, we just don't know enough. It was just a topic I wanted to put on there because of the fact that it is something that's being discussed and now has finally been approved. And hoping that we can get a good access to it. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item 5C, state federal advocacy efforts. I also agree that this is where our voice could be made real strong by all being together in one place, especially if we bring it back to our jurisdictions and get those boards as well to sign, if that's a possibility within the right time frame. I know that I see us as being a unique situation of being a rural area, not a urban or suburban area. I think that some of our industries that we rely on heavily have absolutely been locked down, mainly our tourism industry. So our hospitality groups have really been hurt hard. And so those are the types of things. I know that there is a advocacy group for restaurants, a federal nonprofit group that I was looking into, that maybe that's something that we can kind of join in their advocacy to try and find ways to support our hospitality groups here. But wanted to open that up as far as what kind of, do we see a benefit more at the state or federal level or both? I think both, but open it up for what you think we should be doing on that.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think both. I agree with both. The other thing is I will, being a part of this group, I will maintain my position on the RCRC board, and I'll advocate in that capacity as well. Usually we always check in with each other at the beginning of the meetings. Another thing to add is I promoted our AB 626. They were pretty excited to hear about that when I brought that out there, that we were doing that to help our local businesses. So that'll be a forum I can advocate in.
Yes.
I was just reaching out to our regional division for the League of California Cities, just for suggestions on the best ways to advocate as a rural city. I'm also, so I have a number of different areas where I could advocate just through that. I could also reach out to the National League of Cities to see how to connect their considering appointments for the rural cities council or exchange or some noun that I can't remember. And so I haven't heard if I've been appointed to that yet, but I think I could still reach out to that group to see how we can best have our rural voice heard with ongoing federal conversations.
So just to share what one of my thoughts and ideas is, we've been surrounded by purple for a long time. And I think that maybe we all agree, maybe we don't, but I believe in the fact that our jurisdictional lines are very fictitious. It's only for where we can spend money. Viruses don't care about jurisdictional lines, but yet we've been surrounded by purple. And just because we have done a good job of keeping our cases low, should not mean that we don't get the same level of access, because our folks travel nonstop to go to work in places that are heavily deep in purple, and we've been paying a lot of money from our businesses to help keep our businesses safe, our staff, our customers. And I think that we should ask the state at the very least, maybe in round 2, to look at bordering purple areas, because of the fact that we are within that regional area of the danger zone, and we just happen to have done a better job. But that doesn't mean that we haven't gone up above and beyond in order to make sure that our businesses are safe. And so that might be one way to change the scope of what's possible for us to get, rather than saying, if you were in purple, you have access to this. Well, we've been dealing with purple for a long time surrounding our areas. So that's one potential avenue of creating a new way for Lake County to get access to some of these funds, is if we change that, if we ask to change that.
Ask to change what? I'm still a little fuzzy.
So right now, the $500 million that are being offered through the state of California for small business relief, if you are in a locked down county, you're going to have greater access to those funds. Well, we've been trying to do our best to keep those cases down, which means spending some money. And just because we're not in purple does not mean that we shouldn't have access to it. It should still be based on how much was spent and how much was lost overall. And so I think that we should have look at potentially adding another part that says, if you are adjacent to purple, that you have that same level of access as people that have purple. Maybe not the same level, but it should be a factor in helping us get more access to those funds.
Okay, thank you. I was kind of sort of envisioning coming at it from a rural jurisdiction, in that we have fewer businesses to lose. So proportionately, we're impacted way bigger by the closures, even at a purple level, than say a large city might be. And so that's kind of my area of focus, but I hear what you're saying, because it sounds like you're talking about a structure that's already in place. So I think we
just looking to shift their structure rather than trying to create it. But I think that both what you're saying and what I'm saying could be mixed together. That with a smaller number of businesses, we're more impacted by losing them, but they're also still struggling, trying to survive and make sure that they're safe for themselves and their customers.
Bruno, if I could add to your point about, purple being all around us for quite some time, although we haven't been in purple all that long ourselves, I think you could make the additional point in an advocacy letter that that we rely so much on the purple counties all around us for ICU beds, and that it's typically, typically our hospitals transfer out to those beds. And so, there's definitely an impact, in terms of the operations of our county based on what's going on in the counties around us. So that is an additional argument, I think, for the purple is all around us.
Right. So I would like to, I think the next step is for the federal one. I think we need to learn more first about the PPP before we necessarily advocate for something that's already there. But I want to do some further research into hospitality protection, make sure that that is highly involved in the PPP process because I do believe I read something, because I believe there will be some changes to the PPP, that it's not just a straight carbon copy of the previous one. And so I think we need those details before we start any advocacy, rather than trying to just do what's already happening. So I think that next week, I'd like for us to come back with, I will work to come back with more information on hospitality protection. I think it's something that we all rely on here in our county heavily, as far as our economy, from the cities to the county. And also with more information about the PPP loans and what exactly that will entail. And then from what we just spoke of, I can also work on drafting up, and maybe I can work with Ms. Turner, drafting up a letter to the state of California to look at our rural communities, the impacts that each loss of each business has on a rural community versus other communities. And the fact that our being surrounded by purple has impacted us as well as those that are in purple. And just looking for consensus from the group that is fine with that direction.
Sounds good to me.
Yes.
Is that because I didn't say Alan, I said my name?
That was definitely part of it.
Okay. Any other comments from the committee on the advocacy portion? Okay, opening it up to the public. Any comments on the direction and focus of this group for advocacy? Okay, hearing none, coming back to letter D, logistics of sharing information with local businesses. I think we've covered that pretty much at this point. I think Lake EDC has their finger on the pulse for the list, and I think that we just need to work hand in hand with any kind of information or any kind of, I guess, just information and news that we may have coming out of this group, so that they can go ahead and share it with mass businesses, and we can all take part in that sharing as well. Anything else for that?
No, other than I just got an email that CalEd which is sort of the state organization for economic development corporations, is organizing a webinar with interested EDCs to just kind of figure out if there's other things maybe that we haven't thought of that the EDCs can do to help businesses with that program. And so I just wanted to throw that out there, that we'll keep you posted when we hear anything on that. And if there's something that we need to bring back to the group related to that for assistance on, we definitely do that.
I appreciate that. Yes.
So is Alan our EDC rep in addition to Clearlake rep? If not, do we have an EDC person?
Right here.
Oh,
Right
great.
here.
Super. Okay, I just want to make sure we had it covered. Awesome.
So,
But I'm also on the EDC board, so
yeah, we've actually got 3 or 4 of us in this meeting that are EDC people.
Very good, because we've been talking about it the entire meeting. I was hoping we weren't like volunteering people for stuff that weren't around. So
I think EDC is well covered here today.
okay, good.
Okay. We're going to move on to public input. Is there any public input on anything not on this agenda?